morning, I'm Robert Ockman, and welcome to the April Wednesday Morning Roundtable program. Thanks to our membership, we appreciate your support. To learn more, please visit auburndowntown.org and click on the Roundtable tab. Today's topic is the Inns of Aurora Economic Impact and Development Update. Joining us is moderator Laura Coburn, Director of Serenity and Programming Director, Sue Edinger, General Manager, and Alex Schloop, Creative Director and Director of Marketing. This program is brought to you by Tompkins Trust Company. Laura, go ahead and take it away.
Thank you, Robert. And thank you for having us here today. And it's my pleasure to moderate. As you know, I'm a founding member of the Wednesday Morning Roundtable, but I also work for the Inns of Aurora, and I'm proud to do so. I would like to begin at the beginning, really. And I'd like to invite you, Sue, to tell us a little bit about how you became part of the Inns of Aurora team and how we got to where we are today.
Certainly, Laura, thanks. So I have to go back 18 years, which is how long I've been here in Aurora. Prior to coming up here, I had a background in hospitality. I graduated from the hotel school at Cornell. Went down to Washington, D.C., had my own hospitality management company for 22 years down there. But I got a call one day from a recruiter friend of mine who said, hey, listen, there's a really interesting project that's happening in upstate New York. You're from this area. I think you ought to come up and take a look at this. And I said, no. I've got my own company down here, not really interested in doing much else. We're super busy down here in Washington. And Linda said to me, listen, we're close to getting open enough. Could you just come up, meet these people, do some consulting for them, and set the stage so I can buy me a little bit more time to find the right person to go in. Long story short, I came up in January of 2003, met Pleasant Rowland, who is an incredibly charismatic woman. So I walked in, she talked to me probably maybe 10 minutes and said, yeah, I'm not interested in hiring you as a consultant. I'm like, okay. I start to get up and she says, no. Please, would you do me the favor of sitting down? I'd really like to talk to you about what my vision is here for Aurora and what I'm trying to do. And at this point, I was already up from DC. What the heck? It's January, it's snowing outside. I'm thinking, okay, fine, we'll listen to this. I do. And Pleasant starts to describe what she's going to do, what her vision is here for Aurora. Now, fast forward 18 years, we're near the end of what she talked to me about back in 2003, but the place did not look like it looks right now. We came in, there was about 26% unemployment around this particular region, the southern section of the county. The buildings, which are now beautifully restored, for the most part, were in pretty rough shape, to be candid. There was construction going on because at that point they were already restoring the Aurora Inn, the Village Market, and the Fargo. But I can assure you, it did not look like it looks today. So as she started to describe her vision here, which for her was, you have these, and she used this term in her opening speech here in May of 2003. But she said that God's glory is expressed in the beautiful hills and lakes of this region. But she said that man's glory is expressed in these handsome buildings that are here, and that they are a part of our history, and it's important for us to preserve the history. And she said, I would like my gift back to my alma mater, Wells College, to be the restoration of these buildings. They couldn't afford to do it. They owned them at the time, and she wanted to do this as a gift. But she wanted to restore them and then to repurpose them for today's world. And in her mind, that was a hospitality business. And she very quickly said, I don't really know anything about the hospitality business, hence you. And I said, again, I'm happy to consult with you guys, but not really interested in running this. And she very quickly figured me out, understood that I was a fairly competitive person, and said, I understand you have your own business down in Washington, but that's with 4 other people. Don't you want to know if you could do it on your own? So needless to say, I took the bait, and it's been an incredible ride for 18 years. But to your question about, what was happening here, in her mind, it was about the historic restoration. It was about telling the story of what happened in the 1800s in this region and doing so through the buildings. But it also, in addition to a hospitality management company in the hospitality world, was about the economic impact that it's had on the region here. Yeah. So just to set the stage a little bit, and in answer to your question, that's what was happening and what her initial vision was for this.
And Sue, isn't it true that even though Pleasant started this project out of a love for her alma mater and a place that really informed her in her youth, when the college decided to get out of the business of owning all of these properties, Pleasant comes in again and now purchases that which she has already restored? That's a little part of the story that I don't think a lot of people understand, and I think is really shows her love and commitment to this project, which we're going to talk more about what happened after.
Yeah, Laura, I think it's one of the things that was always confusing for folks. So when I started in 2003 and the project really opens up, the main buildings open up in May of 2003. The short version is the deal between Pleasant was that the Pleasant T. Rowland Foundation was forming a partnership with Wells College, and her gift was funding the restoration of these buildings. And also for the first 5 years, she wanted to be able to pick the management team, and she wanted to manage and operate and cover the operating losses as the company starts to build and grow. The college retained ownership. And I think one of the challenging things for people always was who would come in and invest all of this into all of these buildings that didn't own it. And so frequently, in fact, there's very few times when I'd be talking to folks when you wouldn't have to correct them and say she doesn't own this. So from 2003 till when she left in 2006, she didn't own them. Again, it was just her gift to her alma mater in the preservation of these beautiful buildings here. She left then at that time period, and another 8 years went by. In 2013, things were different for the colleges. Many liberal arts colleges were going through some challenging economic times. Some of them very much still are. But Wells College said, listen, we can't afford to have this particular business over here. It's just as an asset that we're owning. It's worth money and we need the money. So at that point, at the very end of 2013, Lisa Ryerson, the then president, had just left. Tom DeWitt had come in. He's like, okay, where am I going to raise some cash? Oh, we have this asset over here that's been developed that isn't really part of our central mission of the college to educate students. So he then puts it up on the market. And long story short, but Pleasant at that point comes in and buys the operation. And that's a really important point is here. She paid for all the restorations. She does a lot of work, gives time, her money and her time for a 6-year period to develop this, and then goes back and has to pay to buy that which she had restored.
Right.
Very few people would do that.
And we're going to I'm going to ask Alex to chime in here for a minute and help us understand, the audience understand what makes up the Inns of Aurora. But I remember that period, and she not only buys those things which she has restored, but she then acquires some other properties, which will feed into, well, I'm sure we'll talk about more later about how the business has expanded and how it is expanding to become a sustainable. Alex, thank you, Sue. Alex, would you tell us, because a lot of people out there that I run into still think the Aurora Inn is the business. Can you tell us and help us understand what the business really looks like?
Absolutely. Well, first, we love the Aurora Inn. It is our flagship property. So that is very much kind of at the core of our identity. But to date, Laura, we own and operate 5 hotels in the village of Aurora. The village itself is a National Historic District, so all of our buildings are true restorations. We have the Aurora Inn, E.B. Morgan House, Roland House, Walcourt Hall, and Zabriskie House, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Between the 5 hotels, we have 43 guest rooms. So we really think of ourselves as a resort within a Finger Lakes village. In addition to the accommodation properties, our signature restaurant is at the Aurora Inn. That is 1833 Kitchen and Bar. We have the Fargo Bar and Grill across the street, who has fabulous tater tots and burgers. We own and operate the Village Market, which carries our pantry collection, as we'll discuss, along with sundries and staples. Aurora Cooks is our demonstration kitchen down the road, where we offer a variety of programming and dining experiences to our guests. We will be talking about some of our development projects, including Taylor House Conference and Event Center and the spa up the road. Sorry, I should have a list written down here.
Okay.
The
Track of all the buildings, Alex.
The Schoolhouse Activities and Event Center is kind of the hub of all the activities that we offer our guests. Laura is our director of programming, very much focuses on that building. That has our yoga studio in it. And recently we renovated a space to become a wedding sanctuary, which we call Gratitude. And that's where our brides and grooms can get ready before their big ceremony.
Yeah.
I think that's all of our guest facing property, although we do also own a number of other properties that we use for offices and that sort of thing.
Thank you, Alex. You talked a little bit about, some of these newer things that we've done. Sue, tell us a little bit more about why we added that fifth inn, Zabriskie House.
Sure. So the challenge for me when I was hired by Pleasant was to create a sustainable business model. Pleasant's a firm believer that a business that doesn't make money is a hobby, and that the objective always along here has been to get this to figure out what model works that generates a profit and generates enough of a profit to keep the buildings looking the way that they do after she finishes restoring those. So that's the objective here, very much a business objective. And it was clear to me very early on when I first came on, when I was doing what's called the pro formas, those are your financial projections, that in order in a hospitality business of this magnitude with the costs and expenses we had here, I knew back in 2003, we needed to get to around 60 rooms. That was critical for us to achieve the goal of profitability. So each one of the steps along the way, just when we started off with just the Aurora, 10 rooms simply isn't enough to sustain. Wells College, unfortunately, understood that very well as they owned just that particular one. And so we knew that we had to add rooms on. In the hotel business, your highest profit margin element are your rooms, much more so than food and beverage, et cetera. So that's why we start adding on these different rooms here. We also said, what are we trying to create here? And you heard Alex talk about the fact that this is a resort. People come here because they want to be able to come, park their cars, and then walk to everything. And it was Pleasant's goal, remember, to restore these historic buildings. Their houses were so large that candidly, any of these large houses were just sitting on the market. They're just too expensive for people today to run them as private homes. So it made sense to fold them in to and create what we now call the Inns of Aurora. It wasn't always that. We used to have the Inns of Aurora and E.B. Morgan House. And then we branded things under the Inns of Aurora name in order to associate them. But getting to that 60 room, we're not quite there, but we're close enough, was critical to achieving the financial goal of the company.
So when you added Zabriskie House, you went from the 43 rooms that Alex mentioned to 54. At this point, you added 11 rooms with Zabriskie, yeah? Okay. But all in all, each property affords a pretty intimate stay, right? The largest property is only 17 rooms.
Correct. One of the things that was really important to Pleasant is she's restoring these buildings. It was about restoring those, opening them up so people could experience what it was like here in the 1800s. To be very candid, Laura, most other developers would have come in here, seen the incredibly valuable property that we have on the lake. I was just glancing out the window here looking at this. And a much easier way to make money would have been to build a really large hotel or resort here. But again, that's not why she's here. She was here to restore the historic buildings and repurpose them.
Yeah.
So each one of these has been critical for us, and Zabriskie House being that last house that brings us close to that number I knew we had to hit way back in 2003.
You once shared with me that Pleasant not only wanted to keep them small and intimate, but this mention you make of this fantastic lakefront real estate that could have been, buildings could have been raised and new buildings, frankly built. You said something to me once that Pleasant actually wanted to also restore the view down Main Street between the houses. That fascinates me.
Yes, one of the things that as she looked back history, she talks about this in what she terms the rhythm along Main Street. And what was important to her was to go back and restore the lake views. So in the beginning here, you would have had, we'll call them mansions, large houses, right, on the west side of Main Street here in Aurora. And you would have a large house, but then you would have large views to the lake. So everyone walking along Main Street could enjoy the view of the lake. You weren't just blocked by housing there. Over time, certainly some houses came into play there. But one of the things that was important to Pleasant was restoring what she considered to be the historic landscape, protecting the rhythm of home, Lakeview, home. So that is also part of the mission in what we have done. And you see that now. It's very different than what it was 18 years ago when I started. Now you have capture much better lake views walking along Main Street than you could back then.
In a moment, I'm going to ask Alex to talk to us a little bit more about the spa. But before we actually talk about the spa, let's talk about how the spa really informs yours and Pleasant's philosophy about not only the sustainability of the business, but providing year-round employment.
Sure. One of the biggest challenges of operating a hospitality business, candidly, in the central New York Finger Lakes region is the seasonality. Many operators reach out to folks, they'll talk to you about that problem. And if you're going to run, especially at our level, at any level really, but if you're going to run a 4 or 5 diamond level place, there's a tremendous amount of training that has to go into each individual for them to understand and to be able to execute their jobs consistently and at that high level. Payroll is the number one expense in the hospitality business. So if you're going between 95% occupants through 3, 4, 5, 6 months of the year down to 10%, you can't maintain the staff year round. And if you get into a cycle of you're hiring people, laying them off, hiring them, laying them off, first of all, it doesn't create a great work environment for anybody. People that work here for us, and we have a tremendous group of people here, but what they're looking for is year-round employment. They're working because they need paychecks, they're supporting families, and they're supporting themselves. And they very much appreciate the dignity of work. They enjoy that. So we knew that we had to attack the seasonality. Now we're just about to come out of some of the colder months here. We had a beautiful 70-degree day last week, snowed this morning. But we know that to attract people here year round, that we needed to create what we call it, from a marketing term, it's called a demand generator. And we said, how are we going to get more people to come up here in the winter months? We can't just live off of the 6 months from May to October. So what are those demand generators that would work synchronistically with the operations that we had already created? And that's how we get to the 2 things that we're just about to finish now, the 2 final big projects. The conference center, people come here to meet. This is an incredible place to connect with people, both personally and for businesses to connect. This is the seat here of tremendous business operators from the 1800s and entrepreneurs. So there's just sort of in the soil a lot of creativity and curiosity, I think. But that was key to us. And then the other piece is the spa. We believe that the spa and the focus on wellness, and candidly, Laura, a lot of the work that you are doing and what you have done to develop the wellness programs here needed a place to really manifest itself in a larger space. So hence the spa. So spa and conference center, those demand generators we're putting into place to get us to year-round sustainability.
I know everybody wants to hear about the spa. Forgive me, I need to circle back one moment. Tell me about this event center, because I think when people hear the word event center, they think big. But tell us about this really unusual place that we've created for groups to gather.
Sure. Alex, do you want to talk a little bit about this one?
Yeah, I'm happy to.
Okay, great.
Because I think, synchronistically, one of the things we talk about is building a sustainable business by uniting these buildings together. But historically, these buildings were united as well. Almost all of our properties were owned or were lived in by the Morgan and Zabriskie families. So Taylor House is the last mansion on Main Street that needed to be restored, and it was the home of E.B. Morgan's brother, Henry. So in my mind, it's almost like we're bringing the whole family back in. Taylor House is directly across the street from the Aurora Inn. It's a beautiful Greek Revival structure that was built in 1838, so just 5 years after the Aurora Inn. And it was a private home for a short while of E.B.'s brother, as I mentioned. It was then a preparatory school for girls for a brief time. And in the 1930s became the home of the Wells College president, and was so until 2014 with President Ryerson's retirement. So it's a fascinating building. It has a double set of parlors on the first floor. It has a beautiful library. In the 1870s, the family extended the back of the building by adding this gorgeous double ceiling height barrel vaulted wood dining room that is just absolutely stunning. And so Pleasant's mission is always to preserve the character of these historic properties, and we've done so with Taylor House as well. The second floor had bedrooms remodeled over the years, and so we're remaining what is still there, keeping what is still there from a historic standpoint. But we see Taylor House as a place for small social and corporate events. So this isn't a 2,000 person ballroom we're talking about. We have parlors for bridal showers, day after wedding brunches, and then upstairs we have a conference room that will fit about 30 to 40 executives. So that we're really targeting kind of that C-suite executive level who might meet all day for a strategic planning session in the boardroom, use the parlors downstairs as breakout spaces throughout the day, have lunch in the fabulous dining room, and then stay overnight as well.
Excellent.
And Laura, if I could add to that a little bit, what I want to emphasize, one of the things that Alex said that certainly has been true, that Pleasant has reminded me over and over again. She wants to be true to the scale and scope of the village here. This is a small village. And she never wanted to do anything where there were 500 people at a wedding or 300 people at a conference. It's about small scale and scope. It's about intimacy. It's about connecting with people. So the 40-person meeting room that we're doing over there is designed so that people can stay at the different houses, that they can walk over there and enjoy those. But it is not meant to be a conference convention center, I guess. So I think it's really clear and important to point that out, what we're trying to do here. It's never about big scale.
Yeah. And Alex, I imagine that once those executives meet all day, they might like to maybe break a little bit early and head on up to the spa. What do you think?
Yes, absolutely. We are so excited for the spa. It's been our world behind the scenes for the last intensely 2 years. It's a project that Sue has been working on with our partners at Rasa Spa for a decade. And between Taylor House and the spa together, it really feels like this is the capstone to Pleasant's amazing project here in the village.
And, you know, speaking of the spa, we'll give you a minute. I don't want to put you on the spot, but maybe you'd be willing to pop up a photo to give people kind of an idea. And while you do that, Sue, would you like to talk a little bit more about that wonderful partnership that you've created with Rasa Spa?
Certainly. So Laura's not joking when she says I've been working on this. It's actually close to, I think it's 13 years now at this point. It was clear to me back then, wow, I think if all of you guys can see this, you can see this is something we're immensely proud of, that we believe is going to be that demand generator that's going to attract and bring people here even in the winter. But to answer your question, Laura, about Rasa, why Rasa? We have a lot of expertise in restaurants. We have expertise in rooms, but to be very candid, my expertise, nor was anybody's on the team, in spas. And that's a very specific market. So what we did is we went after who we thought was the best in the region here. And it was clear to me a decade ago, it is still true today, that Rachel Hogenkamp, who's the founder down there, and her team are the best in the region here. And so we wanted to partner with the best in the region to come in to manage this, so that as we open up this spectacular building that you're looking at here, that we opened it up with the feet on the ground and running very quickly here, so that we weren't going to miss a beat whatsoever. We are thrilled to be partnered with them. It gives them an opportunity. She too is a women-owned business. To be very candid, that played into this. That was important to us. And I think the expertise that they bring and the focus that they bring on the therapeutic massage is critical. It falls into, and Laura, you would know this better than anybody, much of what we're trying to present from a health and wellness standpoint. So why RASA? They're the best in the region, and they have an expertise that candidly we simply just did not have on the team.
In a moment, I'm going to ask Alex to talk a little bit more about the layout of the spa so people can understand to the best of their ability from listening what it might be like to be in there. But I'm so excited to see that you chose to locate the spa on farmland on the ridge, just outside the village. Can you talk a little bit more about that decision?
Sure. I'm smiling a little bit because this was not our first choice. This was not our first location that we explored. That said, so over this 13-year period, you may say, what the heck were you doing over that time period? Well, part of what we were doing is trying to figure out where to locate this. And everything, remember, Pleasant's mission here was to come back and restore the historic buildings. So we first went through a series of different looks at various locations in the village of Aurora to locate this. But again, part of her mission was to open up the landscape here, to protect the rhythm of the buildings. We explored putting it into a carriage house at our E.B. Morgan house, too small. We explored putting it into what's now our Zabriskie house. To do so would have meant that we literally would have had to gut the inside of the building. And again, that's not why she came here. It was to restore those buildings, not to take them apart. We looked at a property that we had to the north of the Rowland house, but that was going to be wedging it in and taking away from the view shed. So we explored a number of different options. And each time we'd get a little ways into it and decide that wasn't quite right. We also had in the back of my mind, we've owned the property up there on the ridge, and it's beautiful, as you can see from the sunset picture you're looking at right now. And we thought to ourselves, hey, perhaps that is where we should take this. We did look at the Bush house itself up there, but similar to the Zabriskie house, we would have to gut that, and Pleasant is here to restore things, not to gut them. But that brought us up on the hill and looking at this beautiful agricultural setting. And the agricultural roots of this community and the stories behind it are very much important to the history. So if you look back to what Pleasant's trying to do, which is to tell the history of the region, we hadn't really had an opportunity to tell the history of the agricultural roots of the region. So then we start exploring this property a little bit more. And I gotta be honest, I'm so glad we didn't end up at any of the other locations. The serenity and the harmony that is up there and just the sense of peace is extraordinary up on this hill. So we landed in absolutely the right place. Alex, I think, will talk a little bit more about the spa itself, but we couldn't be happier with the location, albeit a little bit of a circuitous route to get us that we took to get there.
But we do have trails. We have trails also from the village. And if we have time, we'll circle back and talk about those. I'm going to ask Alex to give us a little bit of a peek, even if it's narrative, about what we can expect to see at the spa.
Sure, thanks. I just want to echo everything Sue said. This is such the perfect spot for what we're offering from a spa standpoint. Right beyond the hill here is Cayuga Lake. So we're just to the west, the east of the village on that ridge. And from the spa, looking down the hill onto the lake is just incredible. And you're surrounded by these beautiful farmland fields. Interestingly, this construction project actually added more farmland than there was before, which I think is really important. So when we talk a little bit about the building itself, this was our first opportunity to build a building because everything else had been restoration. So all of our operating teams are kind of, extremely excited. I shouldn't say kind of, extremely excited that we had the opportunity to build something that we knew we could provide that unparalleled level of service and sophistication from day one, which again is part of the reason we're partnering with Rasa Spa. I'm going to keep this up on the screen just for a minute, and then I do have some sneak preview images of a couple of the interiors. But I love this view because you have the juxtaposition of the spa on the left-hand side, that modern building that we're almost done building. And then on the right-hand side, one of the historic barns that's on that estate. And in talking to the architects we're working with at Hart Howerton and their interior design team, and Pleasant's vision was very much to honor the history of this location and this site without trying to create something faux historic. So we are inspired by the agricultural forms of barns, and we wanted something that if you were driving by on Sherwood Road, it fits the landscape, but also to interpret it in today's world and to bring a modern sensibility to it. So the building of the spa itself is designed to really look like several separate buildings that have been joined together by a glass gallery over the years. And that's why rather than one giant structure, we have these smaller agricultural buildings as well. It is deceiving though, the exterior, it's a big building. We have 15,000 square foot of guest facing space, which is significant. On a very high level, bullet points of what we'll be able to offer at the spa. We have 10 treatment rooms. We have 6 hydrotherapy pools for amazing hydrotherapy circuits. There is a salon that does nails and pedicures and manicures and hair blowouts. We have a cafe as well that is available exclusively for guests of the spa. We have an amazing tranquility room. We have in each of the gendered locker rooms a steam and a sauna. Outside, we also have a sauna pavilion that is co-ed. And so one of the distinctive features of this spa is the intentionality around allowing and creating space for people to spend time together. Part of what we talk about for the Inns of Aurora Resort as a whole is this concept of time away, time together, time away from your crazy Zoom schedule and the everyday world, and time together with people that matter in your life, whether that's your partner and your spouse or your colleagues. We're doing a lot of family reunions in the last few years, and I think it really ties into what we're doing. So we wanted that to carry forward at the spa as well. If you are a mixed gender couple, sometimes at other spas, if you want to use the steam or the sauna, you're really spending a lot of time apart for the day. So to have the opportunity to have the co-ed sauna, clothing required co-ed sauna, I think is really going to be distinctive for what we're offering.
Excellent. Alex, everybody wants to know when is this opening?
That's $1 million question. To be very candid, we've had a couple of delays with COVID impacts on materials being delivered. So we're not ready to give you an exact calendar date, but early summer for sure will be open. You can, however, be the first to know if you subscribe to our email list, because that is who will be telling first. So if you go to innsofaurora.com/spa, you can sign up right there and you'll be the first to know.
You know, speaking of going to the website, I would be remiss if I didn't say that there's also under the About tab, there is the employment section, and people may have seen some billboards around town, right? I think there's some billboards in Auburn.
They were our first billboards we've done, and it was really fun. We have a fabulous designer on our team, Mike Jasic. But we are adding over 100 positions to the company. That is exclusive of all the people Rasa Spa will be hiring from a massage therapy standpoint. So we are really taking a step forward and becoming that destination resort in the Northeast. And all of the folks from line cooks to gardeners and landscapers, housekeeping, servers, bartenders, you name it. We are hiring. I have been with the company for 9 years. Many of our employees have been with us over generations. We have a couple mother-daughter teams working for us as well. And I'm biased, but it's an incredible place to work. And the buildings themselves are just a joy to be in throughout the day. So if you're interested, we're hiring.
Yeah. A lot of people remember when I decided to make a career change from Coburn design to the ends, and Sue could regale us with the stories of how she used some of Pleasant's techniques to get me to come over as well. But that's for another interview. But you mentioned COVID, Alex, and would you be willing to tell us a few of the interesting things that the Inns of Aurora did during the time of COVID?
Yeah, I will. I would love to, Laura. I think it was such a scary time for everyone, and especially for us from a business standpoint, when we're not supposed to be traveling far from our homes and there was a lot of unknown. Those early months were really scary for us. And what I'm proud to say, I'm so proud of our team, because what we didn't do was the easy thing, which would be to just lick our wounds and say, poor us, and we'll reopen when we can. In one of the most challenging business environments, we rallied, we pressured ourselves to be creative and to think outside the box and say, what can we do to make this an opportunity? A few things came out of that. One, from your department, Laura, in programming, giving Matt Stevenson, who had managed the Fargo for us for a decade, the opportunity to pursue his passion of the outdoors and to create a 3.5-mile nature trail and introduce our guests to outdoor programming we had never offered before, which within a year has become a signature part of our experience. So if you want to take an archery lesson with Matt Stevenson and Michael Shaw, our second outdoorsman, learned how to fish. We do ice fishing when it's cold enough as well, fishing on the dock. That nature trail is just such an opportunity to see Aurora in a way that we've never had before. That project would not have happened had it not been for COVID and the payroll protection program that really allowed us to do that.
Hey, Alex, can I interrupt? Can anyone go on the nature trail?
Yes, please. It is open to the public. You can find all the information about it, including a map, on our website. It is an incredible way to see this piece of land. You go through meadows, you go through fields, you go through woods. There's an overlook platform. You can see the lake. You can bring your dogs, bring your kids. It is not a challenging trail. So there's never a dramatically steep incline, and yet you get to see all of these different aspects of nature. I have been in Aurora consistently since 2008, and I had never seen Aurora this way as I did from the trail.
And then, Laura, can I add on that, just brag a little bit about the team? I think, as Alex said, when the crisis came in, I think the question was, what do you do here? To his point, do you fold up? And I think the versatility of the team we have here, because we said, hey, listen, we're going to take the Paycheck Protection Program loan money. That was to keep people employed, right? But we had a lot of people that we then reassigned to do different projects. And so one of the things I'm immensely proud of is both the creativity and the versatility of the team here. To be able to switch gears and to do that effectively, I think has been extraordinary.
Yeah, very exciting. I saw some other photos there that looked interesting, Alex.
The second project was our pantry collection. We had all been dreaming for years about a culinary retail line of products that we love and cherish on our properties and that our guests experience. We never had the space or time to really go through the many, many, many steps to create a retail line. And so what you're seeing here is the pantry collection, which our culinary team, when we had to close our kitchens and restaurants, created. And this collection is really all of our favorite flavors from Aurora, whether they're items that we're producing ourselves in-house, items that you've experienced at the Fargo at 1833. If you've ever been to a wedding at the Aurora Inn, you'll have had the vanilla spiced walnuts, which are amazing. And so the project here was really, how do you take these small quantities of materials we're used to producing to mass produce them. I say mass, that's still a really small production quantity. What does the packaging look like? How do you make it shelf stable? How are we going to sell this? How are we going to ship it to people? And so I think in hindsight, we may not have known exactly what we were getting in for when we started, but I really have to say how proud I am of us for sticking with the project. And now for us to be able to ship anyone a box of their favorite flavors of their experience in Aurora is really just incredible. Anything that we don't produce in our own kitchens, we are extremely careful on who we partner with, and we're very intentional about it. So the caramel you see here is a caramel that we love and use. It is delicious. This is the salted bourbon. It's from a mother and daughter team in Vermont who have a goat farm and started making caramels a few years ago. The jams on the right-hand side are the jams we use in our restaurant. And so to be able to share these with folks has been huge. And this line will only continue to increase in scope and scale. We do sell our gift sets online, and that's a great way to order and have these delivered right to your door. But if you're in Aurora, you can also buy individual items in the Village Market. And they've had such a great reception.
Gosh, Alex, you're an easy interview. You answer all my questions before I can even think to ask them. So thank you. Thank you for that. I, of course, created an outline for today, as every facilitator might. And the one thing that we didn't touch on very much was our weddings and what we've done over the last few years to really make weddings incredibly special at the Inns of Aurora.
Great. Alex, are you going to go ahead and show some of the Sperry tents? There we go.
Yeah. So back in 2019, we were thinking about how we could even further elevate the wedding experience at the Aurora Inn in particular. And one of the opportunities was to partner with a company called Sperry Tents and Sperry Architecture to create these custom tents for us. And what these tents do is to open up the views to the lake. If you're standing underneath one of these, you can see Cayuga Lake right down the lawn, but also to create a structure itself that is as inspiring as the historic structures that line Main Street. And so these were custom designed for us by that amazing team, measuring on site, building on site. They started as a sailboat company. So these tents are sailcloth and beautiful treated wood, which actually is stunning in and of itself. Unfortunately, because of COVID in 2020, we did not host our regular calendar schedule of large weddings. So we're really looking forward to this summer season. But again, our team went back at a product that was already incredible and amazing and said, how can we make this even better? And then to see from our guests, their jaws literally drop when you see these tents is just spectacular. So we're looking forward to a robust wedding season this summer and moving forward.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm really amazed that, speaking of the creativity and COVID, I was really amazed, even though, it was challenging for all of us, that we were able to reopen relatively quickly. We all, like you said, Alex, we shut down really quickly while we were all waiting and holding our breath. What should we do? What's the right thing to do? And we really reinvented the guest experience, and the guests were very grateful and appreciative and went along for the ride as we tried lots of different ways to keep people safe and continue to be hospitable. And we continue to do that today. So I'll chime in there as an employee and say that. So is there anything else either of you would like to say that you didn't get to say about the Inns of Aurora before we bring our
Laura, I would just add one thing, and I think it's clear as you start to look at the photos here. I do think that we have beautiful buildings. There's no doubt about that. And I think the new buildings, the spa are spectacular. I think the additions on from the Sperry tents are beautiful. I believe the restorations are extraordinary. But I do believe in the core, and I've been in the business for 45 years now. At the end of the day, what people write me about. And in this job here in 18 years, I've gotten more letters, emails, et cetera, from people after their stays here. And while they certainly enjoy the experiences of the buildings, it's the people that they write back about. And I know that seems a little self-serving here, but I think we have created just an extraordinary team. I can't think of when I was in my company down in Washington, D.C., we have housekeepers, many of whom started with me in 2003, 18 years later, are still working with us. Alex mentioned this, where you've got people, I now have next generations of families that are coming in here and working for us. So what I believe makes this special, yes. Is it beautiful with the lake? Is it beautiful with these buildings? Absolutely. I think it's an extraordinary group of people that are here. And so the team that's been created over the 18 years is really what I think separates us from the competitors. And I mean that sincerely. So I want to add that in there. We certainly hope people come down and experience it for themselves. But in any service business, at the end of the day, it's about those connections with the people.
You're reminding me that I don't know if we touched on the fact that, you came back to where you grew up from and, left your career path in DC. Alex came to Aurora as a student. Alex, weren't you one of the earliest classes after they started accepting men to Wells College?
Yes, and as an alumnus of Wells College, I have to say I'm very grateful for their decision to admit men. But part of the reason why Pleasant began her vision and her project was that in order to attract students to a college that's small and in a rural setting, how can we further enhance that setting's beauty so that this is an idyllic place to come and learn and grow as an individual? And I was hooked from the moment that I visited Aurora because it was so beautiful. It is the most beautiful I believe it's ever been now. But I graduated from Wells, had a fabulous experience. I cannot say enough about the quality of the education there. And I didn't really have a plan. So I kind of knew Sue. I had friends who had a house for the summer and thought, well, I'll get a job working at the front desk of the inn, see what this hospitality business is about. And I just fell in love with the hospitality, but more specifically with the company. When I started, we had the Aurora Inn and E.B. Morgan House as our two hotels. And seeing the company grow and being given the opportunity to have a hand in that growth and shaping that, I'm speechless. It's just an incredible opportunity. And I think that, to Sue's point, every single one of our employees has the opportunity to leave their mark on this place, and therefore has such a sense of pride and of ownership of the guest experience. I hate walking down a hotel hallway with a housekeeper and having them look down at the floor and not make eye contact. That doesn't happen in Aurora. That housekeeper makes eye contact with you and says, hello, how's your day going? And our guests notice that. They feel cared for and appreciated. And that is why it is a joy to come to work or work from home every day for the inns, and why I believe so strongly in the product that we offer. I don't know that I really enjoy marketing. I just know that I enjoy marketing our company because I believe in what we're doing.
Jesse, do you have anything that you wanted to ask?
No, you guys have done such a wonderful job presenting information. I'm so excited to explore all these spaces.
Excellent. Well,
thank you all so much.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks so much. We appreciate, yes, you having us. And certainly you can see we've enjoyed the journey over the 18 years.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, I really appreciate learning all about the new projects that are there. I personally had worked at Wells College for quite some time when everything first started, when Pleasant came in and started doing the renovations, and to see the growth is pretty awesome. It looks like a great time, and everything looks gorgeous. And I love that everything was kept to the original architecture of the buildings. I think we lose that too many times nowadays. So bravo to everyone who's been working on these projects for the last 18 years.
Yeah. Thank you, Robert.
Thank you. Well, that will end our program for today. Thank you for joining us for this bid program brought to you by Tompkins Trust Company. Next month's topic is Emerson Park and Owasco Lake recreational businesses in the time of COVID. Enjoy your day, and we look forward to seeing you next month.
Bye.